How low can you go? Death row? What a brother know. Once again, back is the incredible rhyme animal.
Please give a warm, full sail welcome to Mr. Chuck D.
I first of all like to give y'all props because this school I don't think would have took place 50 years ago. This school is really a one of a kind, so I commend y'all for being here and just, you know, furthering your passion, furthering your talent into a skill, and that's two different things, talent and skill. You know, skill is the manifestation of talent, and I'll get into that later on. But I like to say, really, it's an honor to be here at a 21st century school. You are truly 21st century, so props out to yourself, clap for yourself. A lot of people don't know a lot about music. And sometimes, you know, and I mean music history. History will save you. And this country is poor on history because that's even, you know, you could compare a situation that happened in New Orleans a couple of years ago, Katrina. And because this country is poor on history and also geography, a lot of people are not privy to the stone cold facts of geography and history. They were wondering like, wow, I didn't know there were so many black people in New Orleans. And you know, if you just study geography, you would know that it's in New Orleans, which is at the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico, which means they're going to import through ships, products, sugar, goods, raw materials, and slaves. And then if you study history, you would know, or maybe it would guess that the beginnings of music, even as we know it today, have strains leading into a place called Congo Square, where many of the slaves were corralled and congregated, and out of that beginnings, in loose terms, was the beginnings of the elements of jazz and the blues. And jazz was first, you know, called as music, but they put a J on it to clean it up. But, you know, when people talk about jazz today, they just think it's, you know, Pat Metheny and Kenny G, and that's cool. But jazz has some real humble beginnings, way before Cash Money and No Limit. I know old school groups out there, you know, familiar y'all. But way before that, it had humble beginnings. And in New Orleans, in the 19th century, in that mix and in that muck of a whole bunch of races mixed up, because you got to know your history, because if you go back, the things that you learned in school start to pop up again. Like in 1801, what happens? And I know y'all gonna say, what this got to do with music, Chuck? 1801, what happens? You have what called the what purchase? Louisiana Purchase. And who's that French guy that was kind of like running things over in France? Napoleon, right? And so the United States makes this purchase, and I'm giving you just, you know, kind of like the short draft in this. And so therefore, this real estate going from New Orleans all the way up to some of the northern territories is one of the regions that Lewis and Clark go venturing in not too long afterwards. But at that beginning, at a river that actually ends up in the Gulf of Mexico, what's the name of that river? Mississippi runs from New Orleans up to where? Up to, matter of fact, anybody familiar with that bridge that collapsed a couple of years ago? Where's that at? The home of the rhyme sayers and Atmosphere, Brother Ali. Anybody familiar with them? Minneapolis, St. Paul's. Mississippi runs all the way up to there. Of course, with the Mississippi, you have the migration of not just goods, you have the migration of people. So by no surprise, you got this situation now that the United States owns, and they got locks on. And from the mouth of the Mississippi all the way up that river, you got the next major city up that river is what? No, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee sits on a bluff, and because it's in the middle of the east, west, north, and south, it was once called the distribution city of America. Matter of fact, it still is the distribution city of America, because what big company? FedEx. They're there for a reason, okay? Memphis is also called the what? Home of the what? Home of the blues. And Jasmine stopped there too to do their particular thing. Up the river, the next big city is what? St. Louis. There you go, the STL, dog. The STL, way before Nelly and the St. Lunatics. St. Louis was called the what? Home of the what? Home of the blues. Any coincidence? Go further up the river, a little bit over to the east. Chi-Town in the house. Chi-Town was the home of the electric blues because this migration of people moving up who were not immigrants, but they were migrants moving up to a better place. By the 40s, you had the advent of the what? Electric guitar. Electric guitar is also innovated by who? Les Paul. So then, and then also, you got a guy named Leo. What's Leo's last name? Fender, because bass, how low can you go? So you have this electric guitar, the electric bass starts to take place, and because you have this World War II air of affluence start to take place, a lot of things start to converge after World War II, and I'll get in that discussion maybe even a little bit later, but the electric guitar takes place because they needed some kind of amplified sound to play over Smoky Club's noise. So therefore, when Muddy Waters is getting down, he was playing an acoustic guitar down in Mississippi. He goes up north to get some work. They up in a loud spot, people buzzing and all that. He up there screaming on the mic, but they got an amplified guitar. So in the 40s, Chicago begins to be known as the home of the electrified blues. So all this follows up a river by no coincidence. Because when you study history, you find out there's little coincidences that just strike out from some Big Bang theory. It's a reason for everything. That Congo Square was a Big Bang effect here in this country. This is why we're at where we're at now, where we're at a beautiful age. If you look at corporations are really not concerned. They don't have the passion that y'all have for making the music. How many of y'all came here because you have a passion for making music or you have a love for the music? How many of y'all want to be a lawyer? Now, lawyers are in the music business. Now, the music business was once run by creative people in the 60s and the 70s. Matter of fact, in the 50s, you had what? A combination of music lovers and technologists. Anybody familiar with the name Sam Phillips? Sam Phillips starts out in 1940 some odd, or 1950. He's in Memphis, Tennessee. Once again, a distribution center of the country. You also have another distribution center of the country that's highly influential in music, and the name of that city is Cincinnati, Ohio. But in Memphis, Tennessee, Sam Phillips starts this Memphis recording service, and people came in his Memphis recording service and cut some records. They cut some sides. First, it was a lot of black artists. A lot of black artists who were either over across the river in Arkansas or also in Tennessee, and they wanted to actually cut some records because what was taking place at that time? The first black radio station called WDIA in Memphis, Tennessee. 1340 WDIA, going way back in the day. What happens after World War II is that this country started to figure out, or they had to kind of like figure out how to make peace with the people that they actually had also in the service trying to fight off the Germans and the Japanese in World War II. And that was a lot of black soldiers. And the black soldiers came back with a whole different sense of pride and forwardness that this country kind of had to pay attention to because it was a forward movement of a people that was discussed in the music ever since the 1800s. So after World War II, companies like RCA, which is the Recording Company of America, start to come about, and they start out in the early 1900s. They have relationships with Marconi of radio, and many of y'all probably know this because you're at Full Sail. But just to bring you up to speed, what happens in 1948 and 1949, you have an amazing convergence of music and technology. And this is what I'm trying to bring you a parallel up to speed of what you're going through now. Because in order to know where you're going to go in the future, there might be a parallel time in the past that you might have to go to and see if you can make comparisons. Not just for what it's going to be, but for yourself. Now in 1948 and 49, it's the country station that's actually kind of like not making no money in Memphis, Tennessee. The owners said, man, maybe we can actually put on some, this black broadcaster who's actually a school teacher by the name of Nat D. Williams. Nat D. Williams plays the music of the time, and at that particular time, black records were called race records. But because of the upward thinking and mobility of black people at that particular time, race records was starting to looked upon as being derogatory. Post 1944, before that you had jazz, which was defined, and blues was defined. They fragmented into a bunch of different areas. Louis Jordan recorded jump blues, which was a quicker type of blues for young people who just wanted a faster rhythm. And they just wanted to swing a little bit harder and flip in the air and break dance for the 1943, So what starts to happen is that the music starts to develop a sensibility of pride even more so. But they're still considered race records. But Nat D. Williams plays these race records. And all of a sudden, WDIA and Memphis, Tennessee explodes. Now this signal playing black music don't only go to the black population inside Memphis and some of the black population around that tri-state area. It goes everywhere and up the mountains and through the valleys. And so by no surprise, while Sam Phillips records workers that like Howlin' Wolf that come from West Memphis, Arkansas, picking cotton and all kinds of stuff, and then coming in using his, I'm Howlin' Wolf, and recording them, right? He's recording these black artists who also are making records being played now on a radio station. To listen to the radio station, Bell Labs, to the technologies, come up with a what? Transistor radio, little MP3 player, one headphone, millions of songs. The radio stations have radios that start to be reproduced. All right, R&B, I'll give you some reference points. R&B is a term, rhythm and blues is a term started by Jerry Wexler. How many of y'all know who Jerry Wexler is? All right, he is one of the contributors to Atlantic Records, not a co-founder, because he actually joined Atlantic Records after Herb Abramson went to the Army and they needed a person to fill in that slot. And at that particular time, started in 1950, after graduating from Kansas State, Jerry Wexler took the job to head up the race music department of Billboard Records. How many of y'all know Billboard? Billboard magazine? Yeah, I didn't mean to say Billboard Records, but the record chart in Billboard magazine. So y'all know Billboard, right? I know y'all say it, Chuck. All right, give me a difficult one. So as the race records editor of Billboard magazine, hired by Paul Ackerman, they recognized that there was this upward mobility going on in Black Harlem. Billboard's in Midtown Manhattan. So basically saying something had race records was considered derogatory. 1947, what happens in baseball? This signified a whole bunch of different events that was happening at that particular time that also signified forward and upward mobility of black people. So Paul Ackerman hired Jerry Wexler and said, you know what? Come up with a term that reflects this upward movement. Jerry Wexler goes back and comes back with not only the name of his column, but the name of a genre, and later on the name of his autobiography called The Rhythm and the Blues. That's how R&B started as a term. It didn't happen out of nowhere. He coined the term. And there's people out there that coin terms every damn day. But we got to know where it comes from. R&B didn't start with Aaliyah. So, I mean, all the musics have just different terms and whatnot. But in the 70s, what also happened to take place from funk and soul, you had the aspect of disco. Where did disco come from? Disco just came from the fact that the first disco records were orchestrated by, Gamble and Huff. Anybody know Leon Huff and Kenny Gamble from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? Songwriters that actually put a bow tie on the funk. They had orchestration. And their orchestration, their musicians, they wasn't just, they were black songwriters, but from that melting pot of Philadelphia musicians that also come from the what? The Dick Clark days, because American Bandstand gets its start in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania from 1953 until they moved in 1965. So they have a music business in Philadelphia cranking out 45s in rock and roll that led to what? The Twist by Chubby Checker, reminiscent of those records that were on a record label but not by the name of Cameo Parkway. Now, out of those Cameo Parkway musicians and songwriters, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff continued to write songs and do music. And from that, in the 60s and in the early 70s, Philadelphia International gets its start in 1972, or really in 1971, when they make a deal with CBS Records. Now, the major record companies stayed away from soul music. Why? Because they wanted to sell albums. They wasn't in the singles market. Why? A single that sells 99 cents ain't making no money for a corporation. Rock goes album-oriented format in 1967 and 68. So there's a big difference then, because they know they can sell albums for $5 and package them and get it sold and sell millions of them, which satisfies a corporation. Black records selling singles. They don't even want, they kind of interested on buying Motown in the 60s, they kind of not, because all they sell is singles. Motown still makes an impact with their music. Influenced Gamble and Huff to take it to the next level. Clive Davis, who was the president of CBS, who signed Janis Joplin, also signed Sly and the Family Stone as a lawyer for CBS in 1966. 1972, he signs Gamble and Huff because he could not sign Stax Records in 1971. Long story short, Gamble and Huff comes to CBS. They come up with a method with their musicians who have classical training as well as funk training, and they come up with this funk with a bow tie that is the beginning of disco. If you hear the OJ's I Love Music, it's one of the first disco records with a beat. It's just like this, but the music around it has soul and funk to it. So disco in its beginning days, people, was funky as hell. Black music was always lookout music from Congo Square on up. Maybe all the way up to NWA when it wasn't really lookout music anymore. Not saying it was bad music, but it wasn't lookout music. It wasn't like I love you. It was like I'll peel your cap. Love is a Message was the first music that DJ Hollywood rapped on. One of the forefathers of rap music and hip hop, but from a club standpoint. The major holy trinity of hip hop as we know it today, DJs, Africa Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash, Cool DJ Herc. They would take these records and play them. Back in the 1970s, there was a large austerity budget collapse in New York where they de-emphasized culture and music in the school systems. People always loved the music. All of a sudden, you take the instruments away, you take the musical classes out. You ain't got music in the school systems, but you know what? You got music in the school. Because I remember very clearly in 1971, white guitarist with Motown Records, signs with a label named Sussex, which is also owned by a guy by the name of Clarence Avant, who brokered most of those record deals at that particular time. He comes out with a song named Scorpio. Scorpio has a breakdown that if you were in the lunchroom and they break down, they're like, boom, 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 packadum, boom, pat, boom, pat, boom, pat. All I know is that it ain't music classes in the school, but cats is beating on the table, and also they doing that beat like crazy. So there's a thirst and there's an appetite for the music and the culture anyway. So knowing the histories of what things take place, usually what leads you up to saying, well, where are we at now? And I'll leave you with these notes because I want to have a good Q&A. Because I want to see if I can untwist some of your questions. I would consider y'all art academics. All right? Did we just make up a new term? Art academics, let's spell it. ARTCADEMIC. Art academics. because you're able to understand the art, you're able to understand where to take it, you're able to understand where it comes from, and you're able to understand what's going to be coming and fooling most of the people that's around you. It ain't going to fool y'all, it's going to fool the people around you. Sure enough, around that time, it's no surprise that you have a disco group, known as a disco group. They made records like a freaking Yowza disco records. Then in 1979, they slowed it down, made a funk record called Good Times. Let me tell you, Good Times lit the whole damn country up. And New York, which already had rap music matured like 6 or 7 years after 1973, you know, New York was rap crazy. I mean, cats cutting up Good Time with their sneaker. Good. And you think you've seen it now. I don't even know if there was a period ever like that point before records. And I remember somebody, Eddie Cheever, in this club, and I want to get my dance on, so I'm getting my dance on. So Eddie Cheever was the main DJ, and at the same time, I'm like, don't stop the music, So he tells everybody, I'm gonna make a record, and I'm like, it's impossible to make a rap record, because a rap meant 3 hours, a whole party, in and out, ups and down, peaks and valleys. How are you gonna put a whole party on a record? And it was inconceivable. No one had any idea that you could put rap on a record. Totally inconceivable. So when Love Is a Message would come on, or Good Times would come on, you see 8 or 9 people line up with the DJ trying to get on the mic to spit their rhymes. So I'm up here, and the worst thing is that you dancing with somebody, and somebody, 1, 2 on the microphone, like hopper on the popcorn, wow, crazy off beat before that became popular. And then all of a sudden, you dancing with somebody, and she's like, nah, I don't feel like dancing no more. Why? Because they're terrible. And I'm like, oh. So I used to get on the mic to sit whack-ass rappers down. So, no, I had a passion I want to hear the party going. I want to get my groove on, and all at the same time, I want to hear somebody do it good. And there was guys that did it great, like Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel. I mean, these guys were perfect. I said I couldn't even believe a person could ever be that. I was like, blew my brains out. But anyway, just to finish this story, I get on the mic. This is October 1979. I get on the microphone, right? And sure enough, I get on there. So as I get on there, there's like 8 people behind me. They sit their ass down or go dance or something, because they like, I can't be better than that. So I'm just saying, so I'm on the mic, and I'm rhyming on Good Times. And the party is like, go Chuck. And I'm like, I'm killing it, right? Because I was really good when I was 19. Y'all, by the time I did records, I was 27. I was Satchel Paige over the hill. That was before many of y'all were born. But anyway, people are like, go Chuck. And all of a sudden, I'm rhyming on Good Times for a while, killing it. And then in the background, I'm hearing this sounds like another voice on the same groove. And so I got a split second decision to make. It's like, what do you do? This other voice is in your ear and behind you. Do you give up the mic? What do you think I did? Man, I lip sync like Milli Vanilli. I was like, and the voice still was kicking. And matter of fact, it was like hotel, motel, Holiday Inn, If your girl's acting up, then you take a friend, the chicken tastes like wood. And it kept going on for 15 minutes. And people was like, yo, giving me daps after, yo, you incredible and all. So after the party clears out a little bit, I turned to the DJ, Larry T. I'm like, the fuck was that? I looked on there, Rapper's Delight. Oh, damn. And it was like, bing, the light bulb. That's a rap record. So, make a long story short, the lawyers and accountants assumed the record company position. They changed the configuration, and that is when that decision of digital took place. And the minute you make something digital, oh man, it's out of the bottle, and the bottle done broke. And so when all the conversations y'all heard when y'all was probably teenagers, y'all was in, oh, what's all this? People, oh man, downloading, man, it's killing the business. That decision was made in the 80s. Oh man, the record company's gonna sue. They sued because they knew that making it digital and making a CD, they could get people to buy something for twice the amount of money. Because when the CD first came out, it was $18. I had my third album on CD. They said, Chuck, are you gonna buy your own album on CD? I said, hell to the no. I'm keeping cassettes forever. Well, that was like, you know what technologists do? Technologists don't leave it up to the regular people. They treat the masses like the masses. They'll do it anyway. They just move the M over. The masses, them asses. They'll just follow anyway. They're like robots. Programmed robots. It ain't up to you that used to say, okay, I'm gonna get an iPod and a shuffle. No. Companies figured that out 10 years ago and knew that you was gonna go right and stumble right into it. They knew that you're going to stumble right into and all of a sudden become Mac users once they figured out that they could make an agreement and come with iTunes and make Apple the biggest record company of today. They already had that premeditated, mixed with business people that make the selections for drones. The whole key is don't be a drone. Be on top of technology. Don't let it be on top of you. Now, the masses around you will be controlled by technology. Y'all have the choice to master it. And tell your best friends exactly where is what is what. Now, here's advice as we segue into the future. I gave you a big chunk of the past, telling you it's going to be up to you to figure out how you make parallels from the past and the emerging technologies that have even passed on to be able to make that proper convergence into the future for yourself. Advice. Become a nerd at whatever you do. That is not a bad word. Intelligence needs to be honored and cherished. We're in a time where the 8th grader who got the answers is afraid to raise their hand because they don't want to appear to be the smartest one in the room. And the dumbass in the class gets the most props, and instead of wearing a dunce cap, they wearing a crown. Because people are like, oh, he funny, he beating people up, oh, he a thug, I love him. Intelligence will save your ass whether you in school, boardroom, or jail. No, just be good at what you at and keep finding these converging areas because now revenue streams are forming around you. Full Sail is a different Full Sail than it was 25 years ago. Now there's actually areas that people could plug in. It ain't like maybe, 30 years ago when you had, big studios, so you get your degree, now you work at a big studio. It's splintered into thousands and hundreds of thousands of home studios. So think with a DIY situation at all times. And wherever you could actually use your skill to get paid, to feed your family, yourself, or pay your bills, you do what you got to do. But also make sure that this leg is independent to actually find other areas for your skill as well. Here's another thing. You want to talk about money? In the future, the money you save will be the money you earn. What you don't know, either you're going to have to make that person a partner or you're going to have to pay somebody for. So become skillful as many areas as possible. If you actually have a site, you're on MySpace, or you got your own .com site, or you got iLike or Facebook, if you don't know Photoshop, then you got to find a partner who knows Photoshop or Illustrator. Now, if you don't have a partner that knows that and you don't know it yourself, then what happens? You're going to have to pay somebody for it. It's about going forward with a new day and a new belief and new energy, and y'all got the energy to go forward. The record companies have failed on artist development. So what's going to take place, you're going to have a lot of businesses that figure out on new ways to have developed artists. Number one, you can't talk about things that applied in the past, like, yo, man, I'm trying to put on and be platinum. What the hell is platinum anyway? No, it's a million. No, the industry made that standard. Whether an artist is dead or alive, ain't an artist they made that standard. Industry, shipping departments, distribution circuits, sales departments made those standards. You can't go by some of them same standards. You have to develop your own standard. You want to talk about building a fan base? You can't get to 1 million without counting one first. One by one. That's what the music business has shrunk down to. Your fan base is people that you can identify and recognize with. And then anybody extra will trickle in. Now, there's still going to be millions of people loving and consuming music. The thing is they ain't going to be with 6 companies or 20 companies. They're going to be split amongst 10 million companies because each one of y'all is a company if you want to look at yourself as one. And the awe has to be put back in audience. When you talk about music, you cannot remove the fact that it's performance art. It's performance art. And if you take performance out of it, the art form atrophies. So what we're experiencing now is not the download, but it's the fact that diminishing returns are coming because the fans feel that they could be better than what's on stage. And the only time, especially in hip-hop and urban music, where somebody feels that they're not that person on stage is when that person whips out a $400,000 watch. Music could afford to get more competitive as far as building up the skill. You know what? Seriously, it ain't got to be about sports. That's why the circus kept people awe-inspired. Oh, here's the big lady with a beard who eats fire. You'd be like, oh, and you leave in a circus like your brain is blown out. Well, that's how it was in the beginning with certain aspects of rock and hip-hop. Cats is leaving like, yo, man, it's incredible. But then you look like even if a person plays a guitar, like a virtuoso, and plays it incredible, but the person who's so dumb to the fact because of the lack of a standard can't relate what they're seeing to what they're hearing, so therefore a guitar player doing something great don't mean shit. Or somebody spitting all intricate lyrics, it don't mean shit because they can't apply it to a standard. Return the awe to the audience. Rap music has to become performance art again. Artists got to come up with something. They got to come up with some tricks or something, you know? And longevity is always an important part. Do something for a long time. Skills come from talent and passion combined. As far as configurations, technology giveth and it taketh away. Y'all know that. So be on top of technology instead of it being on top of you. Especially in the era of, if somebody says, yo, man, I'm trying to have my music recognized. You better learn how, if you know how to cut your music, learn how to cut video. Learn how to cut video, and I tell people, I say, all right, you want to get your songs heard and noticed? You need to cut a video for every song that you do. So if you cut 40 songs, you better shoot 40 videos, even if you're up in front of the video going like this. Slow frame or something. Because we're in an audio-visual age. They already make a mistake. You know, come on, you know how old people are. They're calling y'all the MTV generation. How stupid is that? They the MTV generation. Y'all the Facebook, MySpace, picture phone generation. Full Sail University is very important to follow the heartbeat and the academic, industrial beat of the rest of the planet. Y'all already know this. There's technologists and musicians all over the world that's moving at light speed. Full Sail is an example that you can actually take advantage of right here in your own time. Get the most out of your time. Ask your professors, your professionals, as much as you can ask them, especially if you're paying for it. Ask them everything because you'll need this information in the future just to be able to be wired up with your family. Now, here's another thing. Don't let technology make you stupid either, because we're in a time where people be on cell phones running to each other in the mall after they was looking for each other and still be on the phone looking at each other. Yo, so what's up? Good to see you. Drop the phone and you look at each other and can't say shit. These little intermediate devices are not, they leave people away from the fact that people are kind of shy and maybe more shy than ever, because now we got these little blankets that keep us from not looking each other in the eye or having human-to-human contact. To somebody look you in the face and you be like, what's you looking at? I'm looking at you. You a human, right? You ain't supposed to look at me. Text me. Send me a picture on Facebook. Oh, I see what you look like. But I was standing right in front of your ass. And I'm not used to seeing the real person. I got to see you kind of like with an intermediary. Don't let technology make you stupid, all right? I think this is a good time But the time can only be backed by the minds that are behind the time. And the minds that are behind the time, meaning supporting the time, will also be ahead of the time. Because time itself cannot be mastered, it can only be managed. And you manage your time, you know, it'll do well for you. I'll leave y'all on that note. I'll shake some hands, and I think I got to get on the road and head off to Savannah because my wife's looking at her watch and like I got to roll. But thank you.